Everyone, Deborah Angilletta here. Oh my gosh, we are here at the Successful Bookkeeper Summit. So excited to be here with you today. Thank you so much for joining. Go ahead, put your seatbelts on. You're in for a treat because we are looking at your bookkeeping, advisory, accounting practice, and we are here to help you make it grow. That's what we're going to do today. So I'm so excited to be here with all of you. Here's a couple of things that you're going to want to do before we dive in. Get a piece of paper and a pen because there is so much great content here and it is actionable. So after we go through the presentation today, you're going to be able to put these tips into action. So that, or go ahead and get a notepad out and take some notes on your desktop so that you can get all of this dialed in and get some great value from today's presentation. It is such a pleasure to be here with all of you. So if you're here to learn about how to master selling for your bookkeeping business, you're in the right place. Once again, I'm Deborah Angilletta. I am so excited to support you today. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so let me just go ahead and level set. Here's what you can expect to learn today. We're going to talk about the proven words and phrases to get prospects on the phone. Now, I know a lot of you run your business on referrals, which is great. We can go ahead and in these tips, dial up those referrals, making sure you get the right ones. But if you want to go ahead and attract new people, or if you want to go ahead and up-level existing clients, we're going to show you how to do it today. All right, next is the practical approach to showing your value. I unfortunately hear all the time that when bookkeepers and accountants are on calls with prospects or even their current clients, they don't understand the value that they bring to the table. And I know how valuable you are because I partner with bookkeepers and accountants and CPAs all the time in my business. So I know how valuable your services are. I can see it, but you need to be able to show your prospects how valuable you are. All right. And then how to overcome imposter syndrome. Sometimes we feel like we're faking it until we make it, right? Sometimes we feel uncomfortable in this place of selling to our clients or up-leveling our services or being able to talk about them at a higher level. We're going to get you over the hump today. So excited. So first, let's go ahead and just level set for a second and look at why is getting sales, why is getting this dialed in so important? Why do you have to really step into sales and having very strategic conversations with prospects so that you can make it easy for them to say yes to working with you? Well, here's the thing. I was never a big believer in sales. I was never taught it in school. I'll tell you more about that later, and I'm sure you weren't either. But here's the reality of life is that sales is the only thing that causes money to move. So I want you to really breathe that in and think about that for a moment because it is very profound, right? It's kind of like a mic drop moment. Sales is the only thing that causes money to move. So when we talk about sales, we know we have to have sales calls in our businesses. And you know what? It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but there is a way to make it comfortable so that you can have these conversations so that you can serve your clients and your prospects on a high level. All right. So let's work with this versus against this. First, let's look at this word convince, because I hear people all the time talking about, well, I have to convince this person to working with me. And every time, I don't know about you, but go ahead and check in with yourself. What is the reaction you get when you actually say the word convince? I know for me, I start to like my hands start to sweat. I start to like grit my teeth like, ew, this word just feels too icky. So what I can tell you is that it's very uncomfortable to feel like you're making somebody do something. And when you do sales right, there is no convincing involved. You just have to strategically ask the right questions in the right order. And when you do sales right, clients sell themselves. So let's go ahead and put a big red X through this. Take this off the table. There's no convincing and selling, none at all. So let's get rid of this and let's go ahead and move forward. So first of all, once again, my name is Deborah Angilletta, and I help accountants and bookkeepers attract their ideal clients, make selling seamless, and close with confidence by providing great tactics that I've been using for years. And so here's the thing. We can go through my bio. It really doesn't matter. Here's what you need to know. Bottom line is that I do all my own sales calls. I am in the sales trenches right along all of you every single day. So I'm not just some sales guru teaching you tactics and strategies and things to do. Everything I teach is what I do. And I pressure test everything to make sure that I'm always giving great content and things that work. So just know I'm one of you. I'm not some guru just talking about this stuff. I am in the trenches having my own sales calls all the time. So I speak from a lot of experience. So once again, when you do sales right, there's no selling in sales. That's the beautiful thing. We can actually start flipping the script, right? It's the same, it's two sides of the same coin, but you can look at it this way. On one side of the coin is sales. But if we flip that coin, what sales really is if you peel it back, it's just service. Service on a high level is really where your sales conversations come in. So I put this picture in front of you because I just want you to know I was not born a natural salesperson by no means. And you're going to hear that throughout my story here is that, but here's the thing. But if you can go ahead and pick up a phone and have a conversation, you can be good at sales. So many people think that, oh, you have to be born a salesperson. Absolutely not. If you can actually pick up the phone, or these days we're getting on Zoom calls, right? And having those conversations, if you can do that and take that step, you can master your sales and your selling process. So probably like many of you, when I went to school for finance and got my degree, started going out in the working world. But I'll tell you, nowhere in that curriculum that I learned in college, or if you went to university or any kind of higher education, were you ever taught sales as part of the curriculum? Probably not, right? So it's been trial by fire. There's really no sales curriculum out there in any of the higher education services. So I can tell you, when I got out of college, I was very surprised. So when I went on with my career, I got a job with a Wall Street firm. And you know what? I never had any formal sales training. What I did is I just watched what other people did and picked and chose and figured out how to make things my own. But I never had any formal sales training. And was I a great salesperson? I don't think I was great. I got by. Why? Because I was never taught this stuff, probably much like you. But here's the thing. I got by in my corporate job, but later on, when I made the leap to go ahead and start my own business, this was the bombshell moment. Because I soon learned that when it came to selling services for my corporate gig, I could do that much easier than selling myself in my own small business. So let me tell you a little bit about what happened and how I found this out. When I first started my business, I wanted to ramp up quickly. I was transitioning out of corporate America. I just had my first child, and I was like, I can't do all of this. I can't be with my child. I can't have this big Wall Street job. So something had to give. So I said, you want to know what? I'm going to go ahead and start my own business. And so that's what I did. I did pretty well early on. And so what I would do is I would go ahead and I would increase sales by going out and doing talks. Go to the local chamber of commerce, the Rotary Club, whatever the local business clubs. I would go around, do a 30-minute talk and offer free initial consultations. Worked like a charm. So I got good at that. If I got maybe 20, 25 people in the room, I might have 8 sales conversations and wind up with a couple of clients. And so that methodology kept working well. But let me bring you to this picture here. I said, well, if I 10x my efforts, wow, I could get a lot of clients that way and grow quickly. So here's what I did. I took $15,000. I gave it to someone else that was having a conference so that I could get on their stage and give a 30-minute talk. And so that's what we call a sponsorship. Paid $15,000 for a sponsorship, got up on this person's stage. They were in charge of getting everybody in the audience. We had like 250 to 300 people in the audience, and it was great. I crushed it on stage, which I was like, yes, this feels great. I walked out of there with 75 sales conversations. I will never forget it. It took me 3 to 6 weeks to get through all of these sales conversations. But here's where that creeping reality came in. As I made my way through all of those conversations, I closed nothing. And then it felt like I had just thrown $15,000 right down the toilet, and it was absolutely gone. And there was nothing that I could do. And so in that moment of absolute sheer desperation and disappointment, I knew I had to pull myself up by my bootstraps and really nail this sales stuff. Because once again, I was able to get by in corporate like I said, not a great salesperson, but I was able to sell somebody else's services. But when it came to my own, no bueno. I had to relearn and actually learn new skill sets when it came to sales. So this is what I want you to know is that I've done the work. I've gone through all the painstaking process so you don't have to. Over 10,000 hours of sales training. At this point in time, over 25,000 sales calls. And I've helped my clients generate over 25 million in over the last 5 years. So those are the salient points to know is that I've been there and I wasn't born a great salesperson. I was trained as a salesperson, put in the work, but then also had the experience of talking with a lot of people and having a lot of sales conversation, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and really the fastest path to executing sales and up leveling your service around sales. So who is this for? Those of you tuning in, if you're an accountant bookkeeper, if you're part of this summit, you're in the right place. And so those of you who are looking to even up level in that into that consultative or advisory role, please pay attention because this is really going to help you up level to that seat. And that's the seat that prospects and your future clients are really looking for because I hear that from them all the time. All right, so let's go ahead, start taking some notes here. How to get prospects on the phone, meaning how to get prospects to engage with you and have a conversation. So first of all, we tend to lead with the solution when we're on the phone with prospects. And so this is kind of how it goes. When you have a call, they present a problem and you immediately go into solutioning mode. And so what we have to do is that in this part, when we get to this part in the process of the conversation, we have to resist solving their problem on the call. Why? Because the solutions only come if clients are paying to work with you. You don't want to start solutioning too early because why would they invest working with you then if you've given it all away? And so we don't want to lead with the solution. We want to go ahead and lead with a sticky problem. So we always want to make sure we're focusing on the problem when we're doing outreach, when we're doing our marketing. We're not talking about how the solutions, we know that our solutions are great and they feel really, really great when we're able to present them to our clients. But in order to get our prospects and our future clients' attention, we have to dangle the problem in front of their faces. Why? Because they're going to recognize that they can raise their hand and say, I have that problem and I want you to solve it for me. So here's the thing. You have to think of the sticky problem like glue. We have to make sure that there is glue between your prospect and yourself is the sticky problem. And so have you ever heard any prospects or clients say this? I don't have any money to pay my taxes. I haven't even taken a paycheck. I want something to show for all my hard work, but there's never anything there. I don't have any money to hire more help. That's a big one right now. My accountant says I'm profitable. Where's the money? I don't know where all my money goes. That's another big one. And I don't want to do the accounting or bookkeeping anymore. These are the big sticky problems in our industry. This is what your prospects are talking about all the time. So this is what you want to do. You want to be focusing on these sticky problems when you are looking to attract your prospects so that you in turn can have a really, really lovely conversation. So once again, you got to find the glue and the problem must be visceral. And so what I mean by this is that when somebody states the problem, there's some sort of exhale or some sort of an audible indication that this is a huge problem for them. So I'll give you an example. If we go back to this list, if somebody says, oh, I'm so exhausted, I just want something to show for myself at the end of the day. I work so hard and, I pay my staff, I pay everybody else, but there's nothing left for myself. So if you hear that exhale, you hear that desperation or exasperation, right? Any of those things, that's a visceral reaction. That's how you know you've nailed the problem. And so when we do this, we want to make sure we've got that visceral problem and that's the glue to coming up with your solution of getting your services, whether they're bookkeeping, advisory, compliance, whatever that is. So here's the thing. What you need to know is getting this dialed in is very, very important of what we just went over, because here's what your competition is doing is they're creating a lot of noise out there. They're talking about nothing because they're always going to solutioning to try to attract prospects. And that's just not how our human brain works. We have to lead with the problem and leave solutioning to the side. And so you want to go ahead and be able to state this very, very succinctly. We do not have our prospect's attention for long. I think it's about 6 seconds these days that we have a prospect's attention. So do not contribute to the noise. Be very, very specific. Find a problem that is the number one problem for most of your prospects and lead with that. I'm going to give you an example. I get solicited all the time from bookkeeping and accounting companies, and usually through LinkedIn. So let me read you a couple of these messages. Hope this message finds you well and in good health. I'm connecting because I'm a pro advisor. I can provide back-end help handling accounting, bookkeeping at very cost-effective prices that can save a lot of time. Please let me know if you're interested. All right, great. Next one is just to let you know, we're providing good bookkeeping and accounting services. We're full service CPAs, reasonable cost to meet your bookkeeping and accounting needs. Let's chat. So here's the thing. I get bombarded with this stuff all the time, and know that your prospects are getting bombarded with this as well. So knowing that, we have to do something different, because how many responses do you think that they get? It's a very, very low percentage of response. But if we go ahead and erase the noise, like I didn't respond to these, and your prospects aren't responding to these either. But if we can become different, if we can put something in front of our prospects that's different, that speaks to their pain point, wow, now you've got their attention. So none of this is boring, right? People are going to glaze right over this because we only have their attention for 6 whole seconds. We have to make it count. So once again, people don't read, they scan. And they have very, very low attention spans. So let's go ahead and start looking at how do you start getting prospects on the phone, the right ones, talking about the right problems. Just say you want to focus in on, a lot of clients don't know where all their money goes. If you hear that over and over again, then you want to invite them to a find the money strategy, right? Now we're talking about the problem, and we're saying, you want to know what? If you don't know where all your money goes, let's have a conversation and figure out, and let's find the money. Let's create that strategy for you. This is how you entice your prospects to have a conversation. These are all the hot topic problems. Just pull one out here and seed them with a headline of, let's talk about a hiring strategy, right? Because they don't have any money to hire more help. Talk about the problem, highlight what you're going to be talking about, that there is a solution out there, but you don't go into solutioning. That's where you have your conversation of where you want to go deeper so you can figure out how to help your prospects. All right. So here's your action item. You want to go ahead and reach out to 10 warm prospects, meaning these are maybe 10 people that maybe you've been circling around that you haven't gotten a response from. Frame it in this way to say, hey, listen, last time we chatted, you said that you don't even have any more money at the end of the day to even get yourself a paycheck. You're sick of paying all of the people around you and your staff, but you want to be able to find money for yourself. Let's go ahead and sync up, and you can go ahead and book a pay yourself first strategy call with me. There you go. There's your action step. And that's exactly how you can frame it. Keep it simple. Stay with the problem. The more succinct you can make this, the higher level response you're going to get. All right. Super exciting. Just go do it. Just take action. Don't think about it too much, because I know a lot of you are processors. That's how you're built. I get it. But you want to know what? I'm going to encourage you. Don't think too much. Just go ahead and do this. This works really, really well for people that maybe you haven't been able to get in front of, that maybe haven't been responding to your emails or just have been too busy. Get super specific. Take this strategy and you will get responses. All right. Next, how to show your value. I know how hard you work and I know how valuable you are and your services are. But the problem is your prospects don't because they can't appreciate all the nitty gritty things that you do. It's just not their wheelhouse to try to understand that. So you have to show your value versus just talking about it. But first, let's talk about the problem behind the problem most times where the value seems to elude us, right? A lot of times we don't have clarity on what we want to charge our clients. And so when we have a little bit of ambiguity around that, you really can't create the value if you don't know what you're charging for your services. It just becomes an unknown of how do you create value if you don't even know what you're charging for your services. Maybe you're considering up leveling, and how do you do that? Getting clear on this is key. And so what you have to do in a conversation, and the reason why I love this little graphic here, right? This little GIF is that you have to be able to have a conversation with your prospects. And in order to show them the value, you got to show them the money. So what does this translate to? This translates into talking about ROI. Right? You've got to talk about the return on investment of working with you. You can't skirt over this. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You can't go around it. You got to go right through it. So if you're not having these conversations, if you're not inserting ROI into your conversations, please start, because the way that your prospects' minds are wired is that if I put money out, if I do X, then I get a return of Y. So if I put money out, my return's going to be blank. And as long as that equation in their mind makes sense, then you're going to get the business. But you have to start talking about this. And if you think back to maybe some conversations or proposals or engagements you went over with prior prospects or even current clients that you're looking to up level, think about maybe how you might have lost the sale because they didn't understand the value. And so the way to fill that hole is to make sure you're talking about ROI. All right. So you got to talk about it. It's really the anchor of the conversation. And so the next thing is we have to start creating the value. So if we know exactly what we're going to charge, then we have to start creating the value. And these are the steps you start to take. First of all, you need to understand that there is a monetary value to absolutely everything. And people ask me all the time, it's like, but what if they say that they want this? I don't know what the value of this is. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So there are two ways that there is a monetary value to everything and how we express it. It's either direct or indirect. Let me give you a couple of examples. So first of all, if there's a direct correlation to the value, it is around money. And so if there is a dollar figure involved in the solution, then it becomes very, very easy for you to be able to use that as the anchor. The second piece to this is that the way that we can value our solution is around time. So that it may not be a monetary outcome, but it may be an outcome where you're able to save them a lot of time. So let me go ahead and give you a couple of real life examples so that you can make sure that you get this dialed in. Okay. So I'll give you an example of a technology company I spoke to a number of years ago, talked with this gentleman on the phone, and he's like, listen, I need to go ahead and make sure that I'm leveraging my time. My kids are getting older. I want to be able to attend their games after school and everything else, but I'm all tied up. I just don't have any money to hire, right? Remember back in our hot topics, this is one of them. I don't have any money to hire, and I need to be able to figure that out. So in this scenario, we drilled down to say, hey, to create more time for yourself so you're not bogged down in the office and you're not always doing the doing, you want to be able to manage the business more, be able to get and spend more time with your family. That is what was important to him. He needed to hire staff so that he could make sure that everything was taken care of so he could leverage his time and work on the business versus working in the business. So this is what we deemed as we needed one more key employee, an operations manager, and that salary was $80,000. And when we talked a little bit more, we figured out at that level, he was going to be able to hire somebody pretty solid at that $80,000 level. So in that scenario, the solution was worth $80,000 because he needed to find that money within within his books, everything that he was doing. We had to find that money so he could get somebody as an operations manager to free him up to work on the business. That is what his desired outcome was. $80,000 was what he needed to get that outcome. So you see, that is a direct correlation to the value. I helped him find $80,000 so that he could bring this person on. All right, let's go to this one. This is a story that I helped with one of my clients. She's a bookkeeper. She works with a lot of people in real estate. She was working with a realtor. We had the conversation together. This realtor was doing the books. They had a lot of different legs to their business. They went ahead and sold high-end real estate. They fixed and flipped properties, but then they also had a property management company, multiple units that they were managing. So in all of this, they were doing all of this and doing all of their own bookkeeping. And so in this scenario, they said that they just wanted to lay off the bookkeeping on somebody. And it was like, okay, where's the value in that, right? You may be scratching your head, and my client was as well. It's like, well, how do I put the value around my bookkeeping services or my accounting services? And so how we approached this was, it's like, okay, great. How many hours a week are you doing bookkeeping? And because he's really inefficient and he's working 3 different parts of the business, he was doing about 3 hours a week on bookkeeping. It's like, okay, so if we gave you 3 hours back in your week, what could you do with that? What could you do with those hours? And they're like, well, I could generate more revenue. I definitely could create another sale. I said, yeah, definitely. So just think about it. 3 hours a week times 4, 12 hours a month. What could you do with 12 hours more a month? Wow, I could really crush it. I could definitely, have more deals and be able to sell more real estate. Great. So what's a typical deal worth? And he was like, well, my commissions, because he sold high-end real estate, is like 50 to 80,000. So once again, we were able to flush out what is the value of this engagement of working with this bookkeeper and laying off the books. It's that we're giving him 12 hours a month back to him so he can go out and sell more high-end real estate to be able to bring in another $50,000 to $80,000 that month. And so that was just, one sale, right? I'm sure he could make multiple sales in the month with that time, as he later revealed as well. So that is the return on being able to leverage time by bringing you in. The solution is they could bring in at least $50,000 to $80,000 more per month. All right. So here's the action step. Start practicing this. It does take a little bit of work, but once you start wrapping your mind around this, it's really a game changer. And so create the ROI on your next call. Start flushing out and starting to figure out, what is the return on investment? What are they going to get on the other end? And what is that monetary figure you can put on the desired outcome or the result that they want to see? And just practice. This does take a little time, but the key here is that about this. That the big hole can be filled that's been really plaguing you in your sales conversations with precisely this and starting to talk about ROI. So just get going and start doing it. All right. So number 3, how to overcome imposter syndrome. This is big. I hear this all the time from accountants and bookkeepers, and you're so good at what you do. And I know that because I work with all of you all the time. And so it's about really just putting this to the side. How do we put this imposter syndrome to bed and never have to deal with it again? So who here, just raise your hand, who here is getting in their own way when it comes to selling your services, right? I could put 2 hands up because I was that person back in the day, right? I totally identify with this. So when you feel uncomfortable about making an offer, and what I mean by even further, let's go deeper with the imposter syndrome, is who am I to charge at a high level for these services to serve these clients? And I like to say, well, who are you not to be that person, right? You want to make sure, why not you be that person? Because if it's not you, it's going to be somebody else. And I know you deserve it for everything that you do. So here's what you want to do. You want to go ahead and take yourself out of the offer. And I'm going to illustrate this for you so that we can really bring this home for you. First of all, you want to craft an offer for your prospects that makes sense. Now, here's the thing. If, going back to those examples, if you're going to charge $1,000 a month to somebody who just started a business and barely has, 10 grand coming in each month, that's not an offer that exactly makes sense. All right. So we can go ahead and agree on that. Right. So your offer has to make sense. So whatever it is that you're going to charge, it has to make sense in the overall scope of the result that they're going to get. Let me show you how this works. What you can do is to really get out of this imposter syndrome and really get comfortable with your offer is take this litmus test. And you can find it in a very, very simple equation. You want to make sure and test your offer. So what you want to do is if you're putting a proposal together for a prospect, you want to put that proposal in front of yourself and see if you can sell yourself first. And this is how you do it. You want to go ahead and just fill in some blanks. Have your offer in front of you and fill this in. Is blank a fair return for a blank investment? Let's go back. Just say you have a proposal on the table for the gentleman at the technology company. We need to find $80,000 so he can free up that money and find that money to go ahead and hire an operations manager so he can work on the business, right? So as we fill this in, that's the desired outcome, finding 80,000, making sure that we can get that person in place. What is it that you want to charge, right? So just say you want to charge $1,000 a month for your services in helping this person. Now, obviously there's a lot involved in that process, right? It's not just about, looking at the P&L. You're going to be doing a lot more for this client. So so you have to look at this. Now, if you annualize that investment, $1,000, if they're going to be investing $12,000 with you to get an $80,000 return, meaning if that you can go in and look at everything and really sit in that advisory seat to help them figure out how to find money to hire or do forecasting or looking at their business overall so you can give them some great higher level advice, is a $12,000 investment or $1,000 a month, a fair return, right? For an $80,000 outcome. Once you position it like this, do this for yourself. Now it starts to make sense. You want to know what I'm putting in front of this prospect? Am I making it easy for them to say yes? Because this is how your prospects, this is how they process what you're putting in front of them. So make it easy for them. Do not let them guess. Put it there, black and white. This is how you show the ROI. And then if you're able to answer this and be like, wow, you're looking at this, you're looking at the proposal, looking at the equation you just filled in here, you're like, this is a no-brainer. They should say yes in an instant because I know I would. Right? That's the place you want to get to. So sell yourself first before you put it in front of your prospect, because confidence is the other key to sales. If you start going down this path and spiraling with this imposter syndrome, that is a lack of confidence, and your prospects can feel that. But if you've taken yourself through this process, I can tell you that you are going to feel so good about your offer. You're going to be like, there's no way that they're going to say no to this. So with this, the ROI is now clear. They don't have to guess. You don't have to guess. You don't have to lose confidence. It only boosts confidence and increases your chance of closing that sale. So once again, put this in front of yourself. Does your offer make sense? Ask yourself first before you put it in front of anybody else. Would you buy from yourself? Heck yeah, in that scenario. So sell yourself first. And so here's what you need to do. Test your offer. Use that equation. Put it in place and go ahead and do that so that you can start skyrocketing your confidence and being able to really step into your pricing and even raise prices if you're looking to do that. Same system and same scenario. Sell yourself first. That's the key to overcoming imposter syndrome and never having to deal with it again. All right. So let's quickly review. So how do you get great prospects on the phone? You've got to find a visceral problem, talk about it all day long, focus on the problem, stay out of solutioning. And that's the bait, right? So if we're fishing, like the fishing scenario, if we got to use the right bait to catch the right fish. So we have to lead with a problem. Don't lead with all the gobbledygook that people send you all the time in those really, really long LinkedIn posts or email. Get to the point, highlight the problem, and then do you want to have a proactive conversation in solving that problem? Next, how do you show your value? We talked about the ROI. I just love Cuba's little face there. Like every time I think about this, I think about his smiling little face. It just makes me laugh and it makes me smile. Talk about the ROI, right? So this is how you can gamify this a little bit so that you can make sure that you're looking at this. Always remember, talk about the ROI, get your confidence up to start talking about it. Because I'll tell you right now, your prospects want to hear this from you. They want you to do the math for them. Don't make them do math. Show them the ROI, lay it out. You become different from everybody else, right? Because different a lot of times is better. And it also just up levels that possibility or that probability that they are going to say yes to working with you because you made it easy for them. And lastly, coming out of that imposter syndrome, listen, we're burying that today. That's it. We're burying imposter syndrome. We're taking it off the table. No more. Craft an offer that makes sense. All right. So these are actionable steps that you can implement today so you can go ahead and make your practice grow. Step in that advisory role or that consultant role. Have a higher level ability to be able to talk to your prospects, become that trusted advisor. And I just want to say how much of a pleasure it was to serve you today. And lastly, if you're looking for something that is a done for you scenario of questions that you can ask on every sales call in any scenario, and they're put in the right order so that you can drive your prospects to making sure that it's much easier to work with you so that they can say yes in a pinch, go hop over to mastermysales.com. There's a free download over there. Happy to help. This is all done for you. The 6 secret questions to ask on every sales conversation that helps you get paid what you're worth. And I know the value that you bring is just about getting these tips and tactics dialed in. And this is yours for the taking. And go get them, everyone. Make sure that you just take action, stay in action. Don't think too much about it. And once again, it is a pleasure to serve you today. Thanks, everyone. Take care.